By President Donald Trump. How did you first hear that that was going to be happening?
Well, there was word or buzz about it on Twitter. At some point, Charlie Kirk had retweeted that I would be one of the people, pardon my name, was like first on the list or up there. And my husband was talking about it. And so we just didn't know what day, but I knew Trump wasn't going to let me sit in that prison. If he won, he was going to get me out. I knew that.
What was going through your mind and your heart once you realized, okay, this is happening. This is going to be real. I'm going to get out. I mean, 41 months is a long time. What was going through your mind?
Oh my God. I was praising God. I was in the middle of my cell block, screaming, praying in the spirit, and praising God. Because once again, he delivered. Once again, and it's crazy because the week before that, or I think 2 weeks before that, God was talking to me about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and also Daniel. And he was like, when I told you no weapon formed against you shall prosper, Daniel did go in there then. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were thrown in that furnace. But what was scheduled to happen to them did not come to pass. And he was basically weighing it on me like, listen, it's not going to happen. You getting out and seeing your daughter at 5 years old and missing most of her younger years, it's not going to happen.
How long did you end up serving based on when you were convicted and went to prison? How many months was that?
3 months and some change, I think. 3 months and like 8 days.
And you have a baby. You have a two-year-old, right? I mean, you have a small baby. So that's why you said she would have been 5 years old when you were done with this. Okay, let's talk about what led to all of this. For those who don't know the backstory, what was it that led to the charges, that led to the FACE Act claims, that led to you being imprisoned?
Well, in 2020, I had a Jesus Matters rally. Okay, it was a 2-day rally. At this rally, police were present. Some woman claimed that I had slammed her hand in the door and that I had blocked the door, which both was not true. The police were present. I never got arrested. I never got a citation. There's even a video going around on Facebook where I have recorded an officer saying I never blocked the doors, right? So what was peculiar about my case is that they waited 2 years to prosecute me right after Roe versus Wade had been overturned to the states. And Letitia James had actually sued me for that rally and got an injunction on me, which kept me from being within 30 feet of the Planned Parenthood in New York, or I would be charged $5,000. So what they did was they sued me federally on a federally civil case. And then right after that, they charged me criminally in the case. So they had claimed, but in this lawsuit, they never claimed that I harmed anybody or any hand. That wasn't in the lawsuit. By the time it became federal, now it was like, oh, well, she hurt someone. But what they don't realize is that the woman who claimed that I slammed her hand in the door did not go to an urgent care until 5 days later, and they still found me guilty.
So do you feel, when you look at this situation, that Roe v. Wade being overturned was a catalyst in your case being sort of ramped up against you?
Absolutely. That and also Biden being in office. Roe versus Wade being overturned, and also with Biden having the full power and influence of our federal government, it gave everybody the green light to kind of hem us up. What people have to understand about when you're charged with a crime, that judge, whatever judge you get, if that judge is biased against you, it can play a humongous role in how you win your case. Judges have the power to deny certain admittance of evidence. Judges have the power to hinder any arguments. We were denied our ability to argue freedom of speech in the First Amendment. We were denied certain evidence to display, like the officer saying that I never blocked because the prosecutors called it hearsay. So by time we had went to trial, the judge had already edited what would be presented to the jury. And a lot of it worked in the prosecutor's favor.
You know, what went through your mind? You spent over 3 months, in prison. Did you have anger? I mean, were there parts of you that said you would have done something differently, or did you really feel like this was not fair? It was handled improperly. I mean, how did you deal with all the complex emotions that come along with something like this?
Well, the thing is, I'm a Christian. I'm never gonna sit and be a bitter individual when I know that prosecution comes with a package. I knew that when I signed up. I knew that when I carried my cross. He said count the cost, and he meant it. Not for people who are just, if you're a mediocre Christian, you won't handle it. But if you really are serving God, it's going to happen. I really was persecuted for my faith. So really, I was not ashamed of why I was there. I never in my mind thought, man, I shouldn't have did it. And if anything, the prayer constantly while I was in prison was for peace, for shalom. It's traumatizing to be in that prison. I woke up in shock. I don't know if you've ever lost like a family member, but for anybody who ever has, like, when my dad died for like 6 months, I would wake up in shock that he was really gone. I still have moments like that where it'll hit me in prison. While I was in prison, I was laying in bed and it hit me. Oh my God, my dad is gone. In the same way, when I was in prison for those 3 months, it would hit me every day. Oh my God, I'm in prison. And I would have to just count on God to give me the peace I needed to push forward.
Where do you go from here in terms of advocacy for the unborn? Obviously, you have been freed and this has been a huge week for you. What happens next? Are you going to be doing more work in this area? I'm just curious to sort of hear your future plans.
Yeah, I feel like doors are opening tremendously for me with the pro-life movement. I think certain individuals that I wasn't connected with then want to connect with me now. And I think I feel like God is placing me up as a display for zeal in him and how he still delivers. And so if I can be like that voice of reason to people to just serve God and just trust him, that I believe that's the season we're in. I feel like my job is to band people together, no matter how they, everybody doesn't protest abortion the same way. Some pray, some speak, some don't, but I feel like this is the season for us to start banding together. And I feel like I'm that voice of reason to convince others that it's important to do. And then on another hand, I feel like I got more work. I have to address the BOP. That prison, the amount of drugs, the amount of sodomy. We have to find a way to have our people in prison, but we don't need to promote sodomy. Trump has already signed an order. There were 3 biological men in that prison while I was there. One of them had ended up getting a girl pregnant. They had to do pregnancy tests on the entire unit.
Wait a minute. So okay. There were 3 biological men, and I know that this happens. This is a huge issue, and I know that the order has been signed now. But in your prison, how did that make you feel as a woman? Obviously, as a Christian, but as a woman, what was that like for you?
Oh my God, grown biological men, nothing snipped. I felt so disgusted and so vulnerable. I'm in a female prison, but I'm still vulnerable. And it doesn't even add the fact that the women are dealing with relationships with each other. I was pursued my first day there. And I had to tell the girl, listen, ma'am, I'm a Christian. Now, I'm not violent, but I will fight for my purity. Come on. I shouldn't have to be put in that position. The prison I was in, they did not write you up if you were affectionate with another female holding hands. They encouraged it. You had women that were in relationships living in cells together, and they were known as couples. This type of stuff should be discouraged. But then on top of that, in federal prison, you don't have conjugal visits. If I have a husband, God forbid I had to do my whole 3 years, it would have been a lot easier on me to at least family helps you reconcile and get back into society. Even if you're a drug dealer or murderer or whatever, some of them may go in unmarried, but may come out married with a family, and they may have bigger things to focus on than just selling drugs. So there's a lot of rehabilitation that has not been happening that has to happen. On top of that, illegal immigrants there that have been taking all the programs, you're on a waiting list. You don't experience programs because all the illegal immigrants are there getting them. So the reform on that alone is another plate of work that I have to work on, aside from being a voice for life.
So you came out with another mission field. You came out with a whole other mission field.
No. I'm just waiting on Pam to call me. Pam just called me and let me know what you need. I will tell you. And on top of that, I have so many family members who've been in prison. So many people I know that are wanting to whistleblow without being vulnerable to the officers telling on them and vice versa to get this thing fixed. This has to be fixed.
Talk about where that passion came from and where that love for the Lord came from, because it wasn't always that way for you, was it?
Right. You know, I didn't know this. I didn't realize this until I was actually in prison. And I was just thinking one day, when I had got my first 3 abortions, right? My first abortion, and this is crazy because I said this to the judge before sentencing. I said, you guys paint this yellow brick road for women to do what they want. It's their body, their choice. And you lay out all of these choices, but yet you don't take responsibility for the broken heart that comes after that choice. These same girls that you sentenced to federal prison are the same ones you told, it's your body, your choice, go and kill your baby. And you guys don't count the cost of the emotional pain that comes from having an abortion. I am a witness. When I was a little girl, I loved children. I've always been that way. Loved baby dolls, loved babies. It's just something that was a part of me, okay? By the time I had my first abortion, I started to see children as a burden. I started to see children as a hindrance. By my 3rd abortion, I mean, I was never mean to children, but I kind of was like, oh, like, I don't want to be that girl just walking around with a baby. Like, I used to look down on the moms, like, they look at them, they're getting fat and their boobs are sagging because they have babies. I was very judgmental of them. When I got saved and I gave my life to Christ, I never had an issue repenting of my abortions because I always knew they were wrong. I never was so radical that I would sit and say, hey, abortion is healthcare. Let's make legislator for it. I never was that crazy, right? Because the word of God is really written on our hearts. We should know better. So once I repented of that and the Lord started to renew my mind and heal me of this hard heart, I had gained a hard heart for my abortions. Now I'm sitting here looking, I'm in prison and I'm reading a Bible comic book and I'm looking at the babies slain in the comic book, and I can't even look at a cartoon of a baby slain. I have such a love for children. I am so head over heels for kids, and it's just it was a passion that I didn't realize that Satan was trying to take from me, but God had ignited it in me for such a time as this. For the babies. These kids, when I stood out there, those kids were not just those women's kids. Those were God's kids. Those were my kids. Those were our future. And I still feel that way about them children, you know? So if anything, God just reminded me and refreshed my heart on the zeal that he placed in me and that Satan tried to take from me regarding life. And as so many other women who were in the same position as me.